Hi everyone out there in YouTube land. I'm coming with you to another video. Actually, a friend of mine suggested that I film this video. I went over to her house today. She wanted to show me how to make these beautiful wreaths. So she suggested I film it so that I can learn, and as well as other people. Anyway, the wreath looks like this. It's completely gorgeous. I can't believe how quickly and easy it was for her to make. So her name is Michelle, and she is going to be the person you see in the video, and she's going to tell you all about how to make this wreath. So I'm turning over the camera to...
Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make a wired wreath out of ribbon. So we have a couple supplies here that Linda picked up at Michael's. We have several varieties of wired ribbon. It is important for a craft like this that your ribbon have wires, and if you can see here, the wires are sewn into the edges of the ribbon so that when you fold it or you bend the ribbon, it holds its shape. If it wasn't wired, it would just flop over and you wouldn't be able to make the ribbon take a specific form. So we have a bunch of different colors here. We have a red with a burlap stripe that has some nice gold in it. And we also have a wider ribbon that says Joy, again with a wire in it. And you can use varying widths of ribbon in one wreath. It's just dependent upon your taste. We have a really pretty poinsettia and gold narrow ribbon with wire. And a burlap snowflake with gold, really pretty snowflakes on it. And lastly, a red and green snowflake patterned ribbon. I would say when you make this project, you want to limit yourselves to 3 patterns of ribbon per wreath. Otherwise, it's going to start to look busy. So for purposes of our demonstration today, I'm going to use the gold snowflake, the Joy, and the red burlap. I also have some tools here that are going to help me make the wreath. We have a wire wreath form. You can pick this up pretty much everywhere. They're relatively cheap. This one is a 12-inch. They come in all sizes. We actually have a bigger one just to show you here. This is an 18-inch. So, you know, whatever size you want your wreath to ultimately end up, do keep in mind when you pick your form that the ribbon is going to come into the wreath a little bit. So you're going to have a much narrower inside of the wreath than what the form looks like. So, you know, pick accordingly. Like on this one, once we get the ribbon off, there's going to be very small space inside. I also have sharp craft scissors, wire cutters, and 2 different types of wire to make bows afterward. We have a 1/15 of an inch diameter cable wire and a thicker gold firmer wire, which we're going to need on the larger ribbon. So, okay, let's get started. I like to start with my thickest ribbon when I do this because this is going to be the most visible ribbon in the wreath once it's completed. One thing you do also have to remember is that most wired ribbon comes printed only on one side. So this side, you can clearly see that it says Joy, the colors are bright, the gold is shiny. But on the reverse, not only is it backwards, there's no luster to this side, so you want to make sure as you're wrapping your wreath, you always have the right side up so that it doesn't, you know, look funny. So the best way to start this is you take your wreath and you strand the wire through, pull it taut, and then because it has the wire in it, you can wrap it. And so just give it a couple of really good tight twists next to one of the bars. And you're not going to be able to see this once we're done, so you just want to make sure that that wire is secured on there because you're going to be pulling it. Okay, so once you have it secured, what you want to do is pull up loops as you go around the wreath. So you take your wire, I'm just going to unroll a bit to work with. And I'm just going to simply pop it through, pull up a nice little amount, and you don't have to worry too much about fluffing it out at this point. Again, making sure that the right side is up, and you push it down, and you go into the next bar, fluff it up, and you essentially go in and out working your way around the wreath, pulling up loops through each bar of the wreath. And again, we're going to add more ribbon. So it doesn't have to, don't worry about if it looks like it's not full or if there is a spot showing through where you can see the metal at the end. None of that will show. You do want to make sure you're pulling your ribbon, your loops through uniformly. You don't want, one big loop and then a bunch of small ones, but it's your discretion how thick you make the loops, because this is a smaller sized wreath. I'm going with a little bit of a smaller loop so that we don't completely enclose the center of our wreath. And you simply work your way around the entire wreath, making loops and pulling up and working your way around. And we'll just show you what it looks like once I've completed one round of loops. Okay, so here we are. We're getting to the end of our first round of ribbon. And what we're going to do is tuck it in the last few spaces. And again, you don't have to be perfect here because we're putting 2 more rolls of ribbon. Okay, and as you get to the end, you see I have a little piece left here. I'll just wrap that a couple times tightly around, and we'll just sort of fluff it a little bit together. We're not going to worry about there being any big spaces because we're coming back with more colors of ribbon. Okay, so that's your first round. Just to note, we did use the entire roll of ribbon. So this was a 7 meter, 25 feet of ribbon. So, plan accordingly. You're going to need at least 3 rolls of ribbon for a wreath this size if you want it to look nice and full. Otherwise, you will have spaces in it. And, you don't need to worry too much about fluffing up your loops right now at this point. They're going to get smushed as you continue on with the next roll of ribbon. So next we're going to go through and we're going to add our red ribbon. I think that'll show the most contrast with the Joy ribbon. So we're going to really just do the exact same thing here. I'm also going to show you the back of the wreath because I think it demonstrates a little more clearly how it's wrapped. So as you can see, when you look at the back of the wreath, you're still able to see the wires, and you see the ribbon is really just loomed through the different spokes of the circle. Okay, so we're going to start now with our second color, and again, we're going to go in and start. I'm picking a spot where there's a space that's easy enough for me to see and get my hands in there and give it a good wrap to start it. And you're going to go up and over, weave it through for the first, and then wrap it around to secure it. And once it's secured, you can go ahead and you can, again, same thing we did in the first round. We're just going to start pulling up loops. This time it's going to be a little bit harder because you're going to have to move, the first round of ribbon out of your way a little bit to get these loops up. This ribbon is the same on both sides, so I'm not so worried about making sure that I pull up the right side this time. And we're going to work our way around and pull up loops of the red with the burlap. You see, you will use actually less ribbon this time because you're not, that's why you use the thick one first, because that's going to fill up the wreath the most. And then this is sort of like an accent. I love doing these because really when you think about it, it's the cost of 3 things of ribbon and this. And they charge you like $40-50 if you go into Target and try to buy a wreath like this. And to me, at least, it's so easy. You don't even really need to be crafty. Well, it looks intimidating if you look at it, if you look at the finished wreath and then go back and say, oh, I want to try to make that. It seems very intimidating. But when you've actually seen it done, you realize it's very easy to do. And once you've made a few of them, you can really fly through. I'm trying to go a little bit slowly to show all the steps very clearly and so that you can see what my fingers are doing. But once you've done this a few times, it really only takes a few minutes. Okay, so here we are. We finished the second round of ribbon, and so now you can see when you look at it, it looks a little bit fuller, and now you can see we've got the two colors of ribbon intertwined. So I'm just gonna flip it over, snip off this, and secure it by twisting it tightly. And again, this is secured on the back, so you're not gonna see that when I flip it over. You can't see where it's secured. Okay, so one thing also to point out, with this second color of ribbon, we have plenty left. Again, that's because we use the really thick ribbon first to really fill out the wreath, and then the thinner burlap comes through as an accent. So lastly, if we want our wreath to look really nice and full, we're gonna go back in and do one more round with the snowflake. This one, again, only is printed on one side, so you just have to be careful that when you pull up your loop, you're pulling up the side that has the pretty snowflake, not the plain white side. And I'll catch back up with you as I'm finishing this round. Okay, so here we are. What I've done is I've gone ahead and I did finish with the snowflake ribbon. We didn't show that because I just did exactly what I had done with the other two ribbons. Secured it at the beginning, gone ahead and wrapped it through. So I went ahead, I tied it off here on the end. You won't be able to see that on the back. So I tied it in a knot and then I wrapped it around tightly. And what we're gonna do now is just go through and make sure our wreath is fluffed. It does get a little bit crushed while you're working on it. So just go through and pull up any ribbons that look like they're smushed, or if you see a spot that looks a little bit bare, you can pull some ribbon over to there to make sure that it's nice and full and uniform. You don't want this side to be more fluffy than this side. Again, this is where that wire comes into play and is very important, because once you fluff your ribbon and put it where you want it, it's gonna stay there. So this looks like it's pretty good, it's pretty fluffy, and it's up to you. You can either stop right here and hang it on your door as a finished wreath. It's very pretty this way. Or you can add embellishments. If you get wire picks or floral picks from the store, all you have to do to add them is take a little bit of the craft wire, which I have down here, and you would wrap the stem of your pick with the craft wire tightly, and then leave probably about that much off at the end, and you would just simply wrap it around in the back here and secure it to the wire form of the wreath, and then you would pop it through on the front, however, wherever you wanted it to come out. So for purposes of this wreath, I'll show you quickly how to make a nice wired bow that you can add just to add a little something extra. So with our wreath over here, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to make a wired bow out of the really pretty snowflake ribbon. So you do need quite a bit of ribbon for this. What I'm just gonna do is use the rest of what's on our spool. There wasn't that much left, but depending on the size of the bow that you're going to make will determine how much ribbon you need. So okay, what you want to do, we're also going to use our heavier gold wire. This ribbon is a little bit thicker because it is made out of burlap, and I think that the gold wire will secure it a little better. So what I'm going to do is cut off, I would say about almost maybe 5 or 6 inches using my wire cutters of the gold medium gauge wire. It snips right off. And we're going to use this at the end to secure the center of our bow. You're not going to be able to see it. So what you're going to do is find the tail end of your ribbon, and you want to place it in your not dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, I'm going to put it in my left hand. Then I'm going to come out, I don't want the bow to be too big, and make a loop about 7 inches total from where the end of the ribbon is. and I'm going to hold the center of that there in my left hand. So if you can see, my hand is about halfway through the tip of the ribbon to the first loop of our bow. Okay, and what I'm going to do is start making a pile of loops, basically. Now, because this is, again, multi-sided ribbon, you want to make sure that you flip the ribbon over every time. So you're going to go out to this, almost to the very end, loop it, and then come back to the center, flip it out to the end, loop it, back to the center, always keeping that left hand, you know, roughly on the center. Flip it, and you're just going to make a pile of loops. And don't worry, at this point it's going to look messy. It won't look messy when it's done. And the flipping it is important because make sure that the proper side of the ribbon always stays face up. And you can make this as thick or as thin as you'd like it to be. This is going to be a pretty full bow, again, just because I chose to use the rest of the ribbon that we had. Okay, so I'm coming to the end here of the ribbon. I don't want to cut it too close, and I don't have quite enough left for another full loop, so I'll just let this hang off for now, and we'll take care of that once we've secured the bow. So now what we're going to do with our hand in the center of the loops, we're going to take our little strip of wire in the other hand, and we're going to try to fold the loops in half and wrap them as tightly as we can with the wire. Depending on what kind of tools you have, there are pliers, jewelry pliers, and I do have some, I just didn't fish them out, that you can use to really get a super, super tight wrap. This is pretty thick wire, so it won't need to be super thick, but what I'm doing here, if you can see, is I'm just simply twisting the wire as I move out from the bow. That tightens it as we go, because we want it to be very tight here. You know, as you can see now, I can let go of it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's nice and tight. And keep twisting until the wire is completely twisted. And then we'll use this same wire to secure it to the wreath. Okay, so now we have our bow. It's really tight, tightly wrapped. And what we're going to do is, if you want to place it down on the floor, you can start taking loops that are opposite each other. So these are the top two loops, and you can pull them up and start to fluff them out and give the bow some shape. And again, it needs to be done out of wired ribbon. This type of bow making just simply doesn't work with non-wired ribbon. It's the wire that gives the bow its ultimate shape at the end. So we're going to fluff this a few more times. So for the first fluff, I like to call it, you're just really opening the loops. You know, there's no really way to do it. You just want to make sure that they're all open. That's our tail. You know, as you can see, I mean, I'm tugging these loops pretty hard to make sure that they're completely open and fluffed out. So as long as you've wrapped your center wire around tightly, those loops aren't going to go anywhere. So now what I do is I face the bow towards myself, you know, as if I was looking at it. And I want to make sure that it's, you know, fluffed out in a way that looks like a bow. And again, you know, if you use a thicker wire as opposed to more narrow wire like we have here, the bow is going to have a different look to it. It's going to look much fatter, like a fat bow. This, I used a little bit of a narrow wire and made pretty big loops. So it's a pretty like rustic looking bow. You know, it's not too fancy. You can even actually do 2 bows the same way and then nest them on top of each other, and that makes a super full bow. So, okay, we have our bow. It's all opened. And what I like to do is take our 2 tails, and with our craft scissors, I just like to cut a nice V on the end of each. I'll leave this one a little bit longer so that it dangles down. Okay, and get this loop out of the way. You can rearrange the loops as you go too. Like, I want my hanging piece to come down over the loop. So there we go. So now we have a nice bow to put on our wreath, and I will attach that by taking the bow, putting it, you know, if I want it to hang down off the bottom of the wreath, I will stick my wires right through, find a spot, you know, where you're not going to crush everything, sort of in the center of the wires. There we go. So this can hang down sort of off the side, and then you're just going to pull it tight, and then you can wrap your wire through the back. This is pretty, like I said, pretty thick wire, so it's a little bit tough to wrap through, but with a little maneuvering, you know, you can secure it on there just by wrapping it around and then you want to take your wire cutters and just snip off the very tip so that you don't have like a nice sharp well, if they were working, that's what you would be doing. I'll just use it to crimp it down. Sorry. Okay, so there we have our bow is attached, and of course it's going to get crushed as soon as you flip the wreath over to attach it. So just, you know, fluff it back up. And there you have it, our finished wreath. And I can show you what it'll look like hanging up on the door. So here we are. Our wreath is hanging up on the door. I just hung it up on a nice simple wreath hook that I already had. And you see the bow will hang down and look very pretty for the Christmas season. They should be pretty waterproof. You can use it year after year, or you can do what I like to do since I like to change my wreaths often. You can just pull off the ribbon that you've used and reuse your wreath form for the next season or holiday, and save your ribbon, and you know, next Christmas you can reapply it to the wreath and you'll have the same wreath, or just, you know, for a couple dollars pick up some new ribbon and change it out, and you can always have a new wreath every season. Hope you enjoyed the video.